For joining topical issues. I'm Stanley Charles. Again, I'm very pleased with the response we've been having, and I say again, what I'm doing is topical issues, not necessarily political. I know you like the political stuff, but it's topical issues as I see them and find them. Here's a question. Can a small, insignificant state like Grenada oppose the will of the United States of America? Should Grenadians accept that, regardless to their own opinion, they cannot overlook the pressures that the United States can bring to bear on their own government? Grenada needs debt forgiveness. Its economy devastated by COVID-19. Remittance is now a major player in the Grenadian economy. Export earnings on a downward trend. Should Grenadians accept that they must be subordinate to the will of others in the international community? We now have deep and strengthening ties with the Chinese. Unofficially, the Chinese see us as monkeys and would like to experiment with the monkeys. Now, the British have reinvented the Commonwealth and are trying to attract us back into the Commonwealth. The Americans have always treated us with a certain amount of disdain because we live in their backyard. Grenada needs money. Why are Grenadian politicians so reluctant to at least decriminalize ganja? Medical marijuana is an economic crop, create jobs, wealth, and health products. Can Grenadian politicians be charged with acting against the interests of the Grenadian people? It is a matter of culture. Politicians are wedded to begging. It's part of the Grenadian political characteristic that Grenadian politicians are wedded to begging. They beg for toilets. There is something called the Basic Needs Trust Fund. If you look around this country, you will see it says Basic Needs Trust Fund. In Grenville, where I'm from, you will see at the back of the police station, Basic Needs Trust Fund. Here is an independent country. It begs for a hole. It needs a hole to be dug, it begs. It needs a toilet, it begs. It is a beggar. But do you need to beg when you have an economic crop? The Ministry of Agriculture is almost invisible. Can medical marijuana be the crop that rebirthed Grenada's agriculture and return agriculture and agro-processing value added to center stage? In South Africa, a judge has opened the door.
In its judgment, this court concludes that A, Section 4B of the Drugs Act is unconstitutional and therefore invalid to the extent that it prohibits the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in private for that adult's personal consumption in private. B, Section 5B of the Drugs Act is constitutionally invalid to the extent that it prohibits the cultivation of cannabis by an adult in a private place for that adult's personal consumption in private. C, Section 22A9A, Roman figure 1 of the Medicines Act is constitutionally invalid to the extent that it renders the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in private for that adult's personal consumption in private a criminal offense. The basis upon which this court holds these statutory provisions to be constitutionally invalid to the extent indicated is that they infringe the right to privacy entrenched in Section 14 of the Constitution. Whereas the High Court had limited its order of invalidity to the use or cultivation or possession of cannabis at a home or in a private dwelling, this court has dispensed with that limitation. It holds that the right to privacy is not confined to a home or private dwelling. It holds that the right It holds that the right goes beyond the boundaries of a home. Nevertheless, This court emphasizes that only the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in private for the personal consumption of that adult person in private is the focus of its judgment. In the case of cultivation of cannabis, the focus is on the cultivation of cannabis by an adult in a private place for that adult's personal consumption in private. Accordingly, no use or possession of cannabis by a child or by an adult in public
to be legalized.
16 years ago, the Constitutional Court held, a majority of the Constitutional Court held, that Rastafari is not fit and proper to be lawyers in this country. They condemned not only this applicant or this respondent to poverty, but the whole of South Africa, as Justice Albie said. Today is a vindication for the Rastafari community, for the cannabis community, as well as for myself, in the sense that I am to be given the dignity and the respect that I as a Rastafari deserve, because I am an indigenous member of this country. Rastafari is an indigenous culture of South Africa, and that we need the respect and the dignity that all other people in South Africa should get. So we are extremely thankful and joyful.
And also a message, I saw you gave a message on earlier to the community.
Yeah, because now I'm like our community, the thing that we complained about most is the fact that police had the right to arrest us for being in possession of small amounts of herb. And we are saying that the criminal law is not the appropriate way of dealing with the issue of substance abuse in South Africa, and that the fact that the cannabis laws, which was a cruel apartheid law, was still used by the liberation government of today, was simply wicked on our part. And the fact that government allowed for 18 years that the Rastafari community be down-pressed, that is a true sign and a reason why we find ourselves in this position that South Africa find themselves in currently.
To communicate, but the thing that we have to eliminate, ignorance and poverty to eradicate, all the whole I get to use them to educate. Yo, don't you try to politicize, don't think me I try to criticize, no, sensitize me I sensitize, and me know say my people must realize the most important things. Begins in your mindset to free get up people they must educate, but education expensive to get. It's like you say we carry water in a basket.
Jeremy Atton is the leader of the Daga Party of South Africa. He responds to the judge ruling.
I'm very pleased that we appealed against the at-home limitation and that privacy has been extended to the person as they move through the public space. It is a new freedom for people, and it allows cannabis users to participate in society in a positive way. And it also, very importantly, puts the medicine, which is this is a very medical beneficial plant. It puts the medicine into the hands of the people, and I hope that it will also empower people in the rural areas in terms of growing a positive product and being able to provide it to others in some private way, where we can actually be a culture and exchange and gift and make sales and trade in this in such a way that it conforms to privacy.
And also, the judge also did speak about quantity, saying that it was not their place to speak on that he was trying to respect the principle of separation of powers. What does this mean going forward in terms of the victories that you have gotten, but obviously you still need to be engaging with the state on drafting the various legislations that speak to the issue of quantity?
Yes. Well, when we make cannabis oil to treat cancer, you need a large amount of materials in order to make a small amount of cannabis oil, and we are still obviously claiming our right to use of this plant for our health. So if people have ailments and they need oil and they need therefore to grow a large amount, as long as they are doing it in a private place by arrangement with the people of their culture, and as long as they're doing using it privately, then I believe that the quantities are not limited. But let's be reasonable. We can as a culture in the interim operate within this new judgment. We can respect this law.
And also, you spoke earlier on about the various demands that you had made to the court, speaking to issues of wanting people that had been arrested by police for the possession of dacha. What's the way forward?
Well, so many people since the Western Cape High Court judgment have been arrested in their homes as a result of this order of the prohibition, and so although these judges did not dismiss this still allows us and all those who were arrested and who are imprisoned as a result to make separate applications in their various high courts to have this possibly their freedom granted as well, because they're equal to everyone else, and why should they sit in jail and be why should they have suffered all this time while people are now more free, you see?
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Governor, Mr. Timothy Antwine, at a press conference and briefing, was asked to respond to a particular issue in terms of ganja, medical marijuana. Here's his response.
Essentially, what the bank has sought to do is to bring to the council some thoughts on how this sector how this industry is evolving. It's budding, it's new, it's in its infancy or nascent stage, and what the report identified were some of the possibilities. The fact that this is now a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry. A lot of it is driven by healthcare. I mean, people talk about recreational marijuana use, which of course is significant. But the driver really of this global demand for medicinal marijuana is its potential to help people with various health conditions. And as a consequence, potentially provide a niche for our region. We recognize the opportunities there, and our suggestions go along the line of ensuring a strong supervisory framework. For anything that you promote, you have to make sure you appropriately regulate. And I say appropriately, you do not want to over-regulate anything, but you also do not want to do light touch to the point where you create public harm. So a lot of the focus at this stage is on sharing lessons, sharing experiences, ensuring an adequate supervisory framework, and clarity and a distinction between obviously recreational use, between decriminalization, which is to say you don't give somebody some kind of sentence or a charge for relatively small quantities, and the development of an industry. The focus of our report was on a medicinal cannabis, the industry, what it can do for us. The report also highlights the obvious fact that there are hurdles to be overcome, significant hurdles in respect of the fact that this is still a prohibited substance under the UN Convention and at the federal level in the United States. So that means that countries cannot transact directly with the US at this point. They can with Canada, because of course Canada, it's approved at the federal level in Canada. So there are limitations, but there are also possibilities, and I think the region wants to position itself. The reality is that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, now in St. Kitts and Nevis, legislation has been enacted in at least 2 member countries for the development of a medicinal cannabis industry. We're also aware of legislation passed in Antigua and Barbuda with respect to some decriminalization, and Antigua and Barbuda has also expressed interest in developing a medicinal cannabis industry. Other countries have begun consultations which may lead to some kind of enactment of some sort at a later stage. So we wanted to be proactive to the extent that we can be and just signal what the possibilities are, while also highlighting the risk and then discussing how we can manage those risks going forward as a currency union.